Exclusive contracted novel by Feilu Novel Network. Me, the god of the flood and wilderness river, controlling the river of time. Ningsheng traversed through the wilderness and became an ordinary river god. Ning Sheng believes that his future is to bless the peace of the land and water, and to occasionally appear in front of others to save lives. What he doesn't know is, the leader of the Tongtian sect saw a corner of the future in his river, and the sect was destroyed. The unparalleled beauty who often bathes in his river is Lady N Yuhua. The three-legged bird he rescued in the river was the demon Emperor Jun from the upstream years. The gray pearl he picked up in the river is the treasure of chaos. The giant egg he saw at the bottom of the river was Pangu, who had returned from time several years later. Master Tongtian. Are you really just a river god, senior? Ning Sheng smiled and said, the River of Time is also a river. Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1. The Chi of Time, Curious to the Sky. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. The Chi of Time, Curious to the Sky. Since the beginning of the infinite meeting, the vast world and the fierce competition of countless paths have caused several tribulations. At the beginning of the Dragon and Han dynasties, the three tribes fought and competed in the wilderness. In the end, the ancestors of all ethnic groups fell, with the Dragon clan permanently occupying the four seas, the Qilan clan permanently occupying the central land, and the Phoenix clan permanently occupying the undead volcano coming to an end. In the struggle between the Tao and the demon ancestor Luo Gui set up the immortal slaying sword formation, but was ultimately defeated by Hong Jun, losing the opportunity to prove the Tao and turning it into ashes. The witches and demons plundered, the demon race controlled the sky, the witch race controlled the earth, and in the end, Emperor Juntai died and the demon court was shattered. The 12 ancestral witches only have one person left, who embodies the 6 paths of reincarnation, but is forever imprisoned in the underworld. After the collapse of the ancient heavenly court, Haotian changed hands and countless elemental meetings have been passed since then. Now it is the time for the 6 saints to demonstrate their teachings, establish the 4 great cults, and suppress the chaos. After countless sessions of recuperation, today's vast land is calm and tranquil. But inside, there was already an undercurrent surging, as if a calamity was imminent. And in a corner of the wilderness, an inconspicuous river is slowly flowing. By the riverbank, there stands a mottled stone monument. On the stone tablet that has gone through the vicissitudes of time, there are inscriptions of the vigorous ancient characters of dragons and phoenixes dancing. Taichu River. In just a few days, there will be 30,000 years left. The day of system restart is within reach. A light sigh, revealing the vicissitudes and loneliness, came from the river surface. Follow the sound to look. There is an exiled immortal who appears to have emerged from ancient paintings, sitting upright on a flat boat. This jade-rich exiled immortal named Ning Sheng is a traveler. At the beginning of his journey to the wilderness, Ning Sheng's golden finger system had already been activated as expected. However, Ning Sheng's system is somewhat unique. Unlike other systems, it directly leads the host to the peak. After the activation of Ning Sheng's system, he fell into a deep sleep again only after becoming the river god of this primordial river. According to the system message, Ning Sheng needs to wait another 30,000 years before the system can be reactivated. And, within these 30,000 years, Ning Sheng cannot step out of the Taichu River for 100 miles, otherwise the system will have to recalculate the time. Nowadays, the period of 30,000 years is approaching. Once the system is activated, Ning Sheng can step out of the Taichu River and embark on the path of fierce competition. With this thought, the vicissitudes of time that permeated Ning Sheng's body also diluted a bit. The aura of time. This is a breath that can only be produced through the precipitation of countless vicissitudes of time. According to common sense, this aura should not appear on a river god who has only existed for 30,000 years. After all living beings living in the wilderness have an extremely long lifespan. The wilderness does not remember the year, and often leads to the hasty passing of several members. You should know that Yiyuan has a history of 129,600 years. Compared to the vast and powerful individuals who only need to spend several sessions in seclusion, Ning Sheng's age is indeed pitiful. But even creatures that have lived through several guilds are unable to give birth to a trace of the aura of time. The aura of time is too rare. There is no clever way to obtain the energy of time, only by experiencing countless years of baptism and precipitation. This is a testament to time, to every living being. But Ning Sheng, who had only been born for less than 30,000 years, was shrouded in the aura of time, which was so heavy that it was unimaginable. As if it is the oldest surviving entity that has gone through countless years since the beginning of heaven and earth. If Ning Sheng is just a living creature under 30,000 years old, even if it is full of gods, Buddhas, and great powers in the wilderness, he would not believe it. However, since the beginning of his journey, Ning Sheng has never stepped out of the Taichu River for 100 miles, and the number of creatures he has seen for 30,000 years is pitiful. As for those great supernatural beings, he has never seen one of them. So, Ning Sheng naturally cannot perceive her own abnormalities. Ning Sheng was riding a flat boat, swaying in the river water. And outside his boat, every time the tide rises and falls in the river, countless supernatural images seem to flash by in a daze. But Ning Sheng did not notice anything. Above the sky, a young Taoist dressed in a green robe is wandering around. The Taoist hangs a long sword with a green duckweed hanging from his waist, and his body spans over a kuei bull. His overall demeanor is like a heavenly sword, piercing through the clouds. His aura is full of bullfighting, and he possesses an unparalleled aura that intimidates all beings in heaven and earth. Hey, where is this? In the midst of the wilderness, there is still a place that the Holy One cannot see through. The Taoist let out a faint sigh, with a curious expression on his face. He immediately patted the cow's head and said, "Cow, come forward and take a look." Kuei Nyo exhaled 2 steaming white breaths from his massive nose, and a muffled voice came out. "Follow the teachings of the sect leader." This Taoist is the true leader of the Tongtian sect, one of the 3 pure ones of Panga's sect. At this time, Sanqing had not yet separated, and the 3 major sage sects, namely Jijiao, Zhanjiao, and Rinjiao, stood together on the Kunlun Mountains. Sanqing is the embodiment of Panga Yuanshan, who was born together, listened to the teachings together, worshipped teachers together, until one day the 3 saints, together demonstrated the teachings, and faced the vastness of the world. The name of Sanqing, the brotherhood between Sanqing, has become a timeless tale of praise and admiration for millions of sentient beings in the wilderness. The leader of the Tongtian sect created the concept of Duan Jiao, which means to cut off a thread of vitality for all beings in heaven and earth. The principle of Duan Jiao is that there is no distinction between teaching and learning. The leader of the Tongtian sect has traveled through the wilderness to recruit disciples for the purpose of intercepting teachings. His teachings adhere to the doctrine of education without discrimination, so naturally he should recruit disciples widely, otherwise there will be no future immortals coming to court. But seeing Kuei Nyo step out without any movement, he had already arrived at a river from beyond the clouds. Kuei Nyo looked at the river in front of him. With his cultivation level as the Tai Golden Immortal, at a glance, it is enough to see the bottom of this river facing the sky. But no matter how it looks, it cannot see anything unusual about this river. Apart from the stone tablet beside the river, which bears the 3 big characters, Taichu River, Kuei Nyo could not find any other useful information. In its eyes, this is just an ordinary river. Kuei Nyo looked at the figure of his sage and master with some confusion. "Saint, what mystery have you discovered?" I saw that the leader of the Tongtian sect had already arrived by the river, but he stopped and frowned silently. Seems to have encountered something that even this heavenly way sage couldn't figure out. P.S. This is the first time I have written about this type of clothing. Does the reader like to read it? If you have any comments, you can put them up in the comments section. I will read clothing. Thank you. Could you please support me, even if it's just a flower or a review ticket? Thank you. Chapter 2. The River of Time, Throughout the Past and Present. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. The River of Time, Throughout the Past and Present. In Kuei Nyo's eyes, this is just a plain and ordinary river. But in the eyes of Master Tong Tian, this long river is different. Since he attained the position of the sage and entrusted the primordial spirit to the heavenly way, in the eyes of him, there have been no secrets left for all things and spirits in the vast expanse of heaven and earth. But at this moment, an inconspicuous river can make even this heavenly way saint unable to see through its essence. In the eyes of Master Tong Tian, this long river is like a dream and a fantasy, as if it is hidden and difficult to glimpse its true face. This is. The leader of the Tong Tian sect unleashed his great powers and used all his eyes to explore this long river. Finally, amidst the rolling waves, I caught a glimpse of my essence. In the next moment, the leader of the Tong Tian sect saw something and could no longer maintain his calm expression, feeling a great shock in his heart. So much so that it was a moment of silence. At this moment, in the eyes of Master Tong Tian, this long river is no longer an ordinary river. What makes up this river is not water, nor any spiritual energy or supernatural powers, but an endless series of supernatural images. Every wave is made up of countless images pieced together. At a glance, the leader of the Tong Tian sect seemed to see endless years in the waves one after another. There are witches and demons fighting, there is a struggle between Tao and Mo, there are three races competing for supremacy, and there is a fierce beast in the imperial court. The images, even those of the holy master of the Tong Tian sect practicing, are extremely blurry. But the more you look, the more your mind becomes trapped and unable to extricate itself. In a daze, the leader of the heavenly sect seemed to dream back to eternity, following through those scenes, intending to follow until the time when the wilderness had not yet been cleared. With a loud rumble. Just as the leader of the Tong Tian sect was getting deeper and deeper, it was like a thunderbolt exploding in his mind. The leader of the Tong Tian sect stumbled back a few steps as if struck by lightning. This is the warning from the sage Daogua, and the sage's essence that he has placed on the heavenly Tao is trembling at this moment. Heaven knows that if he continues to watch, even his Holy One will suffer from great terror and cause and effect from the underworld. But how could this be? The sage of the heavenly way, who only saw a few extremely blurry images and was about to suffer such a great calamity. The primordial gods resting on the heavenly Tao are warning, which means the danger of falling. Sages are influenced by cause and effect without being tainted, enduring countless tribulations without being worn, not born or dead, and living forever in the world. How could there be a disaster of falling? A terrifying conjecture emerged in the heart of Master Tong Tian. Is it difficult? This comes from the great cause and effect in the underworld, which even the heavenly way cannot bear. Is this river? After all, the leader of the Tong Tian sect is a saint who knows countless mysteries between heaven and earth. Thinking of those scenes that seem like ancient times, in the blink of an eye, there is already some speculation about the existence of this river. This long river is not a river in the ordinary sense. This long river is composed of countless years that have happened in this world from ancient times to the present, rolling and flowing, without knowing its source or end. Time flies, there really is such a long river. The head of the Tong Tian sect's expression was extremely shocking. The river of time runs through all the heavens and all the elements. Throughout history, all dimensions contain everything and are the source of everything. This is a vast and mysterious river that only exists in legends. Even saints cannot interfere, find, or face the highest place. The river of time is the most unpredictable existence, and once touched, even the sage must bear the great cause and effect that is enough to dissipate the body in death path. Previously, the primordial warning from the leader of the Tongtian sect was sufficient to illustrate this point. Even if it was just watching without any unnecessary actions, it had already produced that kind of great terror. Not to mention, interfering with the river of time. Just as the heavenly mind had not yet calmed down, this river, which he believed to be a river of time, suddenly underwent a change. Taoist friend, where did you come from? A calm voice like water suddenly sounded. This voice is neither high nor low, with no supernatural features, but it makes the pupils of the heavenly master shrink, and his mind vibrates and hums. He could hardly believe his ears, and this heavenly sage even began to doubt whether he had hallucinations. Is this the sound coming from Hanoi for a long time? How could there be any sound in Hanoi for a long time? Has anyone stepped into the river of time? The leader of the Tongtian sect was shocked. What kind of existence can cross the river of time? The river of time, for saints, is also a well-deserved taboo place. But now, someone seems to have stepped into the river of time and is currently within it. A flat boat drifts with the wind, as if tracing back endless years, coming against the current. The exiled immortal sitting on the flat boat also opened his lonely eyes full of vicissitudes. The leader of the Tongtian sect looked at him, and in a daze, he seemed to see tombstones one by one. It seems like someone is walking in the tide of time in their golden clothes at night, leaving behind one tombstone after another. Only he remains immortal, watching the withered glory of the world. P.S. This is the first time I have written about this type of clothing. Does the reader like to read it? If you have any comments, you can put them up in the comments section. I will read clothing. Thank you. Could you please support me, even if it's just a flower or a review ticket? Thank you. Chapter 3. Little River God, Big Cause and Effect. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Little River God, Big Cause and Effect. Surprisingly, there is someone who can step into the river of time. In the eyes of Master Tongtian, this person in front of him is shrouded in clouds and mist. Although in front of me, I couldn't even catch a glimpse of this sage of the heavenly way, rising like a face in the sky. Moreover, the other party is permeated with an endless aura of time, and indeed, they are the supreme beings who have flowed against the river of time. Over time, the river has manifested itself in the wilderness, and I'm afraid it may be closely related to this existence. What kind of realm should such existence be? When did such a terrifying existence exist in the midst of the flood and famine? Being able to achieve great freedom in the long river of time, I am afraid that I am already above the sage and the supreme existence who has climbed the great road. Even the Taoist ancestor cannot match it. The mind is like lightning, and in an instant, countless thoughts have already passed through. At the next moment, the leader of the Tongtian sect respectfully bowed and said, I come from Kunlun Mountain. Kunlun. Ning Sheng was not aware of the many thoughts of Master Tongtian, but upon hearing about Kunlun Mountain, he was slightly surprised. Although Ning Sheng has never left the Taichu River, he naturally knows where Kunlun Mountain is based on his past life memories. Sanqing Daochang. Moreover, he also knew that Sanqing had become a saint. After all, when a saint becomes a Taoist, he will have boundless visions enveloping the wilderness. When the 6 saints were preaching, he also saw the manifestation of a saint's vision on the Taichu River. For a moment, Ning Sheng thought a lot but didn't notice the name Tongtian. But Kuei Nyo, who stood still on the side, was already dumbfounded, with boundless astonishment in his heart. He couldn't believe what was happening before him. What did he just hear? My own sage and master, actually claiming to be a junior. In the midst of chaos, who can make the leader of the Tongtian sect claim to be a junior? In today's times of chaos, there are very few people who can be compared to the Taoist friends of the Tongtian sect. However, there may be those who are longer than the Tongtian sect, but they cannot afford to be called juniors by the Tongtian sect. After all, on the great road, the one who reaches first. Under the sage, all are ants. Even if they are quasi-saints who survived from the fierce beast's calamity, they cannot afford to be called junior saints. In the cognition of Kuan Yin and all the creatures of the wilderness. In the vast wilderness, apart from the teacher of the sage, the Taoist ancestor Hongjun sitting high in the purple sky palace, there is no one higher than the 6 saints. However, Daozu Hongjun had already joined the Heavenly Way and made up for the deficiency of the Heavenly Way after 3 lectures in the Zixiao Palace, and from then on, he could not escape from the calamity. What kind of existence is this mysterious person who came by a flat boat, who could make the leader of the Tongtian sect willingly claim to be a junior just as they met? Kunlun Mountain, our Taoist friends disciples of Sanqing. Ning Sheng stood tall from the flat boat and asked with a serious expression. The disciples of Sanqing are the disciples of sages. Looking at the vast world, they are also first-class beings. Although Ning Sheng's future may not necessarily be unable to ascend to the throne and be on equal footing with saints, he is currently only a small river god. When facing disciples of saints, one should not be careless. Upon hearing this, the leader of the Tongtian sect was slightly surprised. This mysterious existence actually knows the existence of the Sanqing in Kunlun Mountain. Yes, this existence is able to flow against the river for a long time, but it may already be omniscient and omniscient. Although the sage is tall, for this existence, it is only possible to know it with just one thought. I apologize for my negligence. I'm not sure if you can join the dojo for a chat, my friend. Ning Sheng spoke up and invited each other. He plans to inquire with the Sanqing disciple in front of him about the current era of the times. After all, although he is a traveler, he cannot know everything without leaving home. If we could gather some information from this Sanqing disciple at the moment, it would also be convenient for him to plan early. When the 30,000-year period expires, he will step into the wilderness and seize the opportunity, so as not to collide like a headless fly. Thank you very much for inviting me, Senior. Master Tongtian is once again bowing, overjoyed. He had intended to seek advice from this person, but he didn't know how to speak up. After all, after he ascended to the sage, there was no one to guide him. Now that he can receive guidance from someone who has crossed the river of time and seems to be above the sage, how can he not be pleased? At present, this existence has invited him into the dojo, making it clear that it is to guide him. Otherwise, the leader of the Tongtian sect cannot figure out his own virtues and abilities, and where else can this existence catch his eye? Senior. After a slight pause, Ning Sheng burst into laughter. I am just a small river god and cannot be called a senior fellow Taoist. You are a disciple of Sanqing, Taoist friend. If I were your senior, wouldn't I be on the same level as the sage? Such a great cause and effect, I cannot afford it. Little river god. Big cause and effect. The leader of the Tongtian sect tugged at the corner of his mouth, looking surprised. Is it just a little river god who can step into the river of time? What face does that make him, the sage of the heavenly way, exist in the world? Big cause and effect. You are not even afraid of interfering with the great cause and effect of time, and will you still be afraid of cause and effect? This supreme being is also too modest. Not right. Master Tongtian suddenly woke up. The supreme being in front of me may not want to meet with his true face, so he just claimed to be the little river god. Perhaps this senior is avoiding something, or is he seeking the Tao like those great powers who have transformed and traveled through the mortal world? Yes, perhaps at the level of a senior, it will be extremely difficult to take another step forward, even if one comprehends the 3,000 great paths, it will have no effect. That's why we step into the long river of time, travel through endless years, and seek a trace of truth in the vast world of mortals. Since that's the case, the senior kindly points out to me that I can't ruin the senior's path. P.S. This is the first time I have written about this type of clothing. Does the reader like to read it? If you have any comments, you can put them up in the comments section. I will read clothing. Thank you. Could you please support me, even if it's just a flower or a review ticket. Thank you. Add more rules. You are listening at novelfull.audio. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus 1 watch. 1,000 evaluation votes plus 1 change. 5 tips and 1 watch. There are many saved articles for clothing, welcome to vote. Hee hee. This is the first time I have written about this type of clothing. Does the reader like to read it? If you have any opinions, you can put them up in the comments section, and I will read clothing. Thank you. Could you please support me, even if it's just a flower or a review ticket? Thank you. Chapter 4. / All the Injustice in the World. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. / All the Injustice in the World. It's Qingping's rudeness, please don't blame me, Taoist friend. When he found out that the senior didn't want to show his true face, the leader of the Tongtian sect quickly changed his tune. By the way, I gave myself a fake Taoist name. Since the senior is like this, he should naturally cooperate with the senior. Otherwise, he would be regarded as a saint and a little river god, and would be called a Taoist friend, which would be too discordant and may offend his seniors. After all, perhaps a saint is nothing to this senior who can go against the current for a long time. Thinking of this, Master Tongtian is somewhat pleased with his comprehensive consideration. I am a poor person, but I have met my friend Qingping. Ning Sheng smiled and spoke. He was also somewhat surprised in his heart, but he did not expect that this Sanqing disciple would be so approachable, without the arrogance of a so-called major disciple. This also gave Ning Sheng some confidence in exploring the matter of the flood and famine. Seeing Ning Sheng smiling, the leader of the Tongtian sect became even more confident. In his opinion, this is clearly the recognition of his understanding and recognition from his seniors. Perhaps the senior would give more guidance under his sensible circumstances. Ning Sheng lifted his fair and jade-like palm, and with a slight press, he saw the surging river water surging and a Taoist temple emerging. Blue bricks and green tiles, an ordinary river temple. Qingping Dao Yu, please. Ning Sheng took one step and fell into the temple of the river god. The leader of the Tongtian sect looked at this ordinary and unremarkable river god temple and sighed in his heart. This senior, in order to disguise himself as a river god, was really thoughtful. Just as the leader of the Tongtian sect wanted to keep up with Ning Sheng's pace, his face suddenly became delicate. He looked at Ning Sheng's back, hesitating to speak, feeling quite awkward. At this moment, Ning Sheng regained his senses and saw this Qingping Taoist friend hesitating by the riverbank, feeling somewhat puzzled. What is the reason for this, Dao Yu? Is it because I find the poor Taoist temple too shabby? Upon hearing this, the leader of the Tongtian sect looked at the river under his feet, wanting to cry without tears, but also afraid that neglect would offend the senior. He hurriedly said, "This Taoist friend, Qingping can't get through it. He really wants to say, Senior, you can stroll leisurely in the river of time, but I am just a little saint. If I dare to take a step, I'm afraid I will die instantly. But if that's the case, it will inevitably expose the identity of the senior, and if the senior gets angry at that time, it's not something that Xiao Tongtian can bear." Kuei Nio's eyes widened, and what he saw and heard today completely surprised him, subverting his image of being connected to heaven in his heart. Is this still the towering sage of the past? You should know that the leader of the Tongtian sect cultivates the killing and attacking swordsmanship, wielding the immortal slaying sword formation. It is impossible for the 4 saints to break through, even among the 6 saints, it is invincible. Who would have thought that this invincible sage from heaven would appear embarrassed when he met, unable to even cross the river? If this were to be known by the other 5 saints, wouldn't it be like laughing out loud? A small river, what can't be stepped on? Ning Sheng frowned slightly, somewhat incredulous. Is it true that this Taoist friend is afraid of water? Is it because this Taoist friend's path is incompatible with water, or is it hindered by water? It is not surprising that the 3,000 avenues complement each other. However, this Qingping Taoist friend seems to be too afraid of water. Perhaps in the past, I encountered some calamity about water that left an unforgettable shadow in my heart, almost becoming a demon in my heart. This can be explained. After all, for those who practice Taoism, the calamity of the mind demon is related to life and death, and they are naturally extremely afraid. Perhaps the Qingping Taoist friend who had been watching in front of the river before was trying to overcome his inner demons. With this thought in mind, Ningsheng felt relieved and began to persuade the other person, saying, "Among us, we swim towards the North Sea in the twilight, and in a blink of an eye, we have crossed mountains and rivers for thousands of miles." Now, when facing a river, the Taoist friend retreats. On the road to cultivation, there were countless disasters. One difficulty was overcome, and the next one was overcome again. What if there is no refund available? In the past, the Pangu clan created a new world and was besieged by 3,000 demon gods. Has Pangu ever taken a step back? If Pangu retreats, will there still be the current flood and famine? Pangu is towering above heaven and earth. What about the 3,000 chaotic demon gods? Come and let me conquer them with my own strength, run air, on the 3,000 great roads. Ning Sheng's face showed disappointment and sighed. Now in this vast wilderness, with thousands of tribes competing, there are countless plans on the main road, but no one can speak of bravery. Although the Wu tribe has fallen, it is the only race in the wilderness that has inherited Pangu's legacy. Fighting the heavens and earth, the direction of the Tao, retreat is impossible. Our cultivators, we should not ask about the past, not cultivate the next life, only seek a lifelong respect, cut down all the injustice in the world, and vent all the unhappiness in our hearts. After speaking, Ning Sheng also felt a bit disillusioned. He looked at the leader of the Tongtian sect, his eyes as plain as water. I shouldn't force my fellow Taoists either. If my fellow Taoists feel it's not appropriate, they should be mocking me and withdraw. At this moment, the leader of the Tongtian sect was already stunned on the riverbank. At this moment, this sage of the heavenly way only feels his heart stirring and his spirit unable to calm down. The direction of the Tao is irreversible. Don't ask about the past, don't cultivate the next life, only seek a one-life reverence, slay all the injustice in the world, and spit out all the unhappiness in the world. Isn't this the path he seeks from heaven? P.S. This is the first time I have written about this type of clothing. Does the reader like to read it? If you have any comments, you can put them up in the comments section. I will read clothing. Thank you. Could you please support me, even if it's just a flower or a review ticket? Thank you. Chapter 5. Giant Opening the Sky. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Giant Opening the Sky. Thanks for your guidance, Qingping has come to understand. Qingping will remember the kindness of the Taoist friend's preaching in her heart. The leader of the Tongtian sect bends down 3 times to bow and perform the half-teacher ceremony. Seeing the leader of the Tongtian sect, Ning Sheng seemed to have some understanding. A smile curved around his mouth and he slightly lowered his head. It seems that this Qingping Taoist friend is not as bad as she imagined. Plush. When Kuei Nyo saw the leader of the Tongtian sect performing the disciple ceremony, his heart had already turned upside down, and his feet were limp, half kneeling on the ground. Then he turned his shocked gaze to the exiled immortal standing with his hands down outside the river god temple. Who exactly is this person? Besides Hongjun Daozu, how could anyone else be a saint in preaching? In this mortal world, how could there be an existence that can rival the Tao ancestor? The leader of the Tongtian sect is called a Taoist friend. Is it possible that this person is also a saint? Or is it a saint with an extremely profound realm, even further than the 6 saints of the heavenly way? Otherwise, as the 6 saints of the heavenly way, their cultivation levels are not significantly different. At most, they only discuss the Tao with each other and cannot reach the stage of preaching. From Kuei Nyo's perspective, the highest level can only think of the sage realm, and further up, it is not something he can speculate on. The eyebrows of the Tongtian sword are slightly raised, and the eyes are as bright as stars. There is a scene of the birth and death of the world, the 6 cycles of reincarnation, and the supreme Tao is manifested all over the body, majestic as heaven and earth. Obviously, Tongtian has already employed an inexplicable great power. The leader of the Tongtian sect stepped out in one step, intending to cross the river of time with the identity of a saint. Previously, when I heard the senior praise the witch tribe, the leader of the Tongtian sect also felt ashamed. Sanqing and the 12 ancestral witches are both authentic Pangu. However, although the 12 ancestral witches died and disappeared, they adhered to the will of Pangu throughout their lives, fighting against heaven and earth, and fearless of everything. And he is dignified and pure, transformed by Pangu Yuanshan, carrying the merit of opening up the heavens. Now he has proven himself a saint and is in charge of the top-killing immortal sword formation in the heavenly way. But it lacks the courage of the witches to fight against heaven and earth in the past. Perhaps after reaching the peak, he was too lazy, making him forget the backbone and will of the Pangu clan. However, Sanqing has always boasted of the authenticity of Pangu. How could they be willing to fall behind others? Today, guided by Ning Sheng, Tongtian has regained the deepest inheritance from Pangu in his bloodline. This inheritance is not any tangible thing, but a belief and a path. Pangu clan, summarize it in one word. Do what you know you cannot do. I understand the heavens and will never be weaker than humans in my lifetime. With a thought rising from the sky, I suddenly feel the clarity of my thoughts, and even the sage's path and fruit have faint signs of promotion. Taking a step into the sky, transforming into thousands of sword lights, flying towards that river god temple. Even if he sinks into the endless years, he has no regrets. Just as the sword light flew over the Taichu River, I suddenly felt countless waves rushing towards me. That every wave is pieced together by countless years, in the eyes of Tongtian, it is like the vast and endless Xiaoniang, rushing towards us. This is the crushing force of the river of time. Whether hiding in the past, future, present, or any dimension of time and space, Tongtian will bear the crushing force of the river of time. Even with the sage cultivation of the heavenly master, he feels like a rootless duckweed, as if he will be completely erased from the world in the next moment. All forms, concepts, and paths related to him will be suppressed. From this moment on, from ancient times to the present, all the heavenly elements and infinite beings will forget the name of Tongtian. If you hear the Tao in the morning, you may die in the evening. At the last moment, that stunning sword light transformed back into a celestial figure. The leader of the Tongtian sect swayed his sleeves and held a Qingping sword, facing the tide of time alone, with an indescribable charm. At this moment, Tongtian transformed into the towering giant figure in his bloodline. Sanqing has the enlightening experience inherited from Pangu, but it is incomplete and extremely vague. But at this moment, under the extreme sublimation of the sky, this joyful experience seemed to be trembling in the dark, as if it was leading to something. Staring at the tide of time, Tongtian caught a glimpse of a giant wielding an axe. The tide of time rises and falls, and in an instant, it has already hidden that image. But Tongtian was stunned and lost in thought, murmuring, "Father." In an instant, the tide of time has already rushed towards us, drowning the sky. On the river surface, Ning Sheng only saw a wave rising, with sword lights flickering and trembling, as if they were about to fade away in the next moment. Ningsheng and Tongtian seem to be situated on 2 dimensions. The calamity of the mind demon cannot be resolved in just a few words. Ning Sheng let out a light sigh and made a move. A little golden light burst out, turning into a golden path. He went forward to receive the sword light. Ning Sheng's eyes flickered, but he noticed a slight abnormality. In that wave, there seemed to be a scene rolling and flowing. Ning Sheng raised his hand and with a gesture, a painting flew out of the tide and came before him. Above the painting, amidst the vast chaos, a towering giant wields an axe as if to cut through everything and redefine the world. This painting is both mysterious, as if it contains boundless Tao rhyme. But Ning Sheng turned a blind eye to it and sighed lightly, why are there always some strange things in this river? At the next moment, Ning Sheng casually put away the painting and continued to cast his gaze into the river. P.S. This is the first time I have written about this type of clothing. Does the reader like to read it? If you have any comments, you can put them up in the comments section. I will read clothing. Thank you. Could you please support me, even if it's just a flower or a review ticket? Thank you. Chapter 6. Building a golden bridge over the sea, time cannot hinder its path. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Building a golden bridge over the sea, time cannot hinder its path. Just as Tong Tian was about to die and his path was fading away, a little golden light suddenly shone through his eyes. That little golden light unexpectedly broke through the tide of time and then extended infinitely, penetrating the sky and earth, transforming into a towering sea and golden beam. This towering golden beam extends straight to the feet of the Heavenly Master, completely protecting his ever-changing figure in the long river of time. The endless waves of time are all retreating, as if conscious, afraid to touch this bridge that bridges the sea. Did the senior take action? Even time has to retreat, and time cannot stop its path. What kind of existence is senior? In an instant, the leader of the Tongtian sect was carried by the golden beam of the sea, stepping out of the embrace of the tide of time. After the leader of the Tongtian sect stepped out, the sky and earth spun around and he had already arrived at the front of the river god temple. Although you have not achieved success, you have already taken the first step, which is commendable. Ning Sheng stood with his hands down, and a warm and jade-like voice came out. This Qingping Taoist friend is truly a disciple of the sage. He just casually sighed a few words, but didn't want to really let the other party fight against the heart demon. Upon hearing Ning Sheng's praise, the leader of the Tongtian sect was both surprised and delighted. He never expected that this senior's realm was so profound that it was only a few words, containing boundless mysteries that even his sage's teachings had been subtly elevated. The fruit of the sage's path signifies the fundamental essence of the Great Way, and this sublimation is simply incalculable for the elevation of the sage. Especially for the inheritance and understanding of Pangu Father God. Once he settles in seclusion and gains this experience, his cultivation level will definitely improve again. But when it comes to the great divine power of this elder, who has built a sea and a golden beam, and has crossed the river of time, the joy that has just risen in Tongtian's heart instantly fades away. In terms of such existence, although he is a saint, the gap between the two is like a natural barrier. Even greater than the gap between ordinary people and saints. At present, Tong Tian bowed to the end, saying, "This bow is to express gratitude to my fellow Taoist for his kindness in preaching." Maintaining a stick of incense for a sufficient amount of time. Tong Tian just stood up, his expression serious, and he bowed again. This time, thank you, Taoist, for saving your life. In the future, if my fellow Taoist has any trust, Qingping will never refuse to die. Ning Sheng casually waved his hand and chuckled, "You don't need to be like this, it's just a matter of raising a finger. Please come in and have a chat." After speaking, Ning Sheng turned around and walked towards the Taoist temple. His behavior is carefree and unrestrained, as if he really doesn't care much. After all, in Ning Sheng's opinion, he just casually sighed a few words, and finally helped Qingping Daoyu once again. Even if he didn't act or speak, he wouldn't believe that Qingping, a disciple of the sage, would fall into a river. The leader of the Tongtian sect looked at Ning Sheng's back, but his eyes were particularly firm. He didn't know whether Ning Sheng didn't care, didn't want to be influenced by cause and effect, or simply didn't believe that this sage could help him. But this kindness will always be remembered by him, and at some point in the future, he will repay it. Even if it's just a way to die, I'm not willing to hesitate. Subsequently, the leader of the Tongtian sect also walked into the river god temple. The leader of the Tongtian sect entered the river god temple, but was slightly stunned. Without him, this river god temple is really too rudimentary. Ning Sheng felt a bit awkward upon seeing this. This is called the river god temple, but in fact, there is not even a deity statue. After all, there are no human beings living near the river, so what's the use of having a deity statue? Anyway, no one will come to worship. Moreover, Ning Sheng stayed at home and never made any Taoist friends, so no one would come to visit him in the past. So Ning Sheng doesn't think there's anything wrong with it. But today, the first guest has arrived here. Ning Sheng finally realized these. I made my fellow Taoist laugh. No one had ever visited before, and I didn't pay much attention to these things, so the dojo was very rudimentary. After speaking, Ning Sheng looked around the Taoist temple and secretly made up his mind that he must find an opportunity to decorate this river god temple. Anyway, he often finds strange things in the river that can be used to decorate Taoist temples. Upon hearing this, the leader of the Tongtian sect smiled and said, "What is so crude? The mountains are not high, and if there are immortals, they will be spiritual. If there are Taoist friends sitting here, they will surpass countless caves and blessed lands in the wilderness." Master Tongtian is a heartfelt emotion. Even though this place is impoverished and treacherous, as long as Ning Sheng lives here, it will be the first holy land of the wilderness. Even if it's a sage dojo, or even the Purple Sky Palace, they have to be one head shorter. Ning Sheng chuckled in silence and didn't take it seriously. Instead, he joked, if there were a day, it would be thanks to the blessings of his fellow Taoist. If what I expected was good, my fellow Taoist should be a disciple of the Shangqing lineage, or a disciple of the Jiejiao sect. Tongtian felt a chill in his heart. What does this mean, senior? Is there another mystery in it? As expected by my fellow Taoist, I am a disciple of the Shangqing lineage. Upon hearing this, Ning Sheng gave a slight smile. This is not what he saw, but what he guessed. I guessed it from the Taoist name Qingping. The Qingping sword is a tool for the sage to prove the Tao, and in a sense, it symbolizes the friendship of the three pure ones. The Qingping sword of the head of the Tongtian sect, the jade rui of the primordial heavenly sovereign, and the Tai dust of Laozi are all top-level innate spiritual treasures and also tools for the three saints to prove their teachings. P.S. Reader, brother is very enthusiastic. Although the data is not up to the required level, the clothing spontaneously adds a new chapter. Hee. By the way, EE will update 10 chapters within 24 hours. This is the first time I have such a result. EE is so excited. This is the first time I have written about this type of clothing. Does the reader like to read it? If you have any opinions, you can put them up in the comments section, and I will read clothing. Thank you. Could you please support me, even if it's just a flower or a review ticket? Thank you. Chapter 7. Wearing fur and armor, wet spawning and egg turning. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Wearing fur and armor, wet spawning and egg turning. Qingping sword, Yurui, Tai brushing dust, these three top-level innate spiritual treasures were originally transformed from the 24th grade pure world Qinglian. And this 20.4 grade pure world Qinglian is a lotus seed that once gave birth to the chaos treasure Chaos Qinglian of Pangu. Later, due to the severe damage to the vitality of Pangu, the Chaos Qinglian couldn't withstand the pressure of Kaitian and broke apart, transforming into countless innate treasures. Among them, there are 5 lotus seeds, which have been transformed into 12 grade black lotus, 12 grade fire lotus, 12 grade merit golden lotus, and 1 lotus seed is nowhere to be found. And the last one fell on Mount Buzhou, transforming into the highest grade 24 grade pure world green lotus among all the lotus platforms. But it is because of its high grade and lack of heavenly merit to protect its body that it is not allowed by the heavenly way and wants to destroy it. So Sanqing followed the fate and divided the Qinglian into 3 parts as it withered in the pure world. The lotus root is transformed into the 3 treasures Jade Rui, which was obtained by the heavenly sovereign of Yuanshi. The lotus flower is transformed into Tai Fuqian, it is obtained by Laozi. The lotus leaf is transformed into Qingping sword, and it is obtained by the master of Tongtian's sect. So to some extent, these 3 treasures also symbolize the relationship between the 3 cleanups. The Taoist name Qingping carries the burden of the sage's cause and effect in the dark, so only the disciple who intercepts the teachings can use it. Therefore, Ning Sheng guessed that Qingping was a disciple of the Jijiao sect. Dao Yu came from Kunlun, which means that at this time, the 3 religions of Chan, Jia, and Ren still coexist in the same mountain. Ning Sheng's heart moved and asked again. He needs to determine whether Sanqing has separated at this time in order to determine where the flood and famine have developed. How far is it from Fengshen Liangjie? What does this mean, Daoist friend? The 3 pure ones are one, and the 3 teachings naturally reside together on the Kunlun mountains. As soon as Master Tongtian spoke, his face became solemn. With Ning Sheng's words, he unexpectedly sensed some kind of bad omen in the dark. It was just this kind of omen, but it was very vague and he couldn't figure it out, so he became even more puzzled. But the existence of saints, since they are telepathic, is inevitably related to themselves. Thinking of this, Tongtian couldn't help but smile bitterly in his heart. Every word and action of this senior really has its own profound meaning. However, my own path is too low and I cannot perceive the profound meaning behind my senior's every move. Has Sanqing not separated yet? That is to say, there is still some time left until the moment of Fengshen Liangjie. Ning Sheng looked at the Qingping Taoist friend in front of him and chuckled lightly. Since the calamity has not yet arisen, why not stir up some of the water from this calamity? After all, once the saints come to the end to plan, the overall situation is basically settled. As a small river god, it will be difficult for him to enter the game. It's better to disrupt the chessboard in advance, or even simply lift it up, in order to turn passive into active. This is also the only opportunity for him, the little river god, to have the qualification to compete with the sage. At least in Ning Sheng's own opinion, it's like this. With a decision in mind, Ning Sheng spoke up and said, in the eyes of Qingping Daoist friend, what is the relationship between the 3 Qings or the 3 teachings? The relationship between the 3 cleanups. The leader of the Tongtian sect was slightly dazed. Although he was very puzzled about why the senior asked this question, he still replied according to his words, the 3 pure ones are one, born together, seeking the Tao together, listening to the Tao together, worshipping teachers together, and practicing the Tao together. The friendship between them is even more praised by the sentient beings of the past, which is naturally excellent. The 3 teachings of elucidation, truncation, and human beings were also created by the 3 cleanses, and naturally there is no gap between them. Emotions are shared with brothers and siblings, and they are supported by each other. Upon hearing this, Ning Sheng shook his head slightly. Although he knew that the leader of the Tongtian sect was a person with great loyalty and righteousness, he did not expect his disciples to be like this. However, it is also true that if it were not for the heavy affection and righteousness of Tongtian, one would not have been trapped by the Western 2 saints in the alliance of the Supreme Emperor and the Primitive, and would not have ended up in such a tragic fate. If it were not for his words and deeds, his disciples would not have followed suit and avenged the other disciples. The leader of the Tongtian sect is respected for his noble character, but in the end, he becomes a tragic figure. A petty person leads the way, but there is nothing to be done. Sanqing was separated, and the leader of the Tongtian sect was harassed and mocked by Yuanshi and the Supreme Emperor, feeling that his disciples had brought shame to Sanqing's name. Worried about friendship, he eventually gave in. Fengshen Liangjie was originally intended to allow his disciples to compete, but after his disciples were defeated, Yuanshi Tianzuan repeatedly used the big to bully the small, personally suppressing and slaughtering countless disciples who had intercepted the teachings. Finally, the leader of the Tongtian sect was forced to set up the immortal slaying sword formation. Yuanshi Tianzuan knew he was invincible and conspired with the Supreme Emperor to unite with the two Western sages. He did not care about the name of Sanqing at all and joined forces to deal with Tongtian, slaughtering his disciples who had intercepted the teachings. After the Battle of Fengshan, the immortal slaying sword formation was broken down, and the practice of cutting off the teachings of the 10,000 immortals who came to court also dissipated. There are countless deaths and injuries among the 10,000 immortals who have intercepted the teachings. There are those who have died directly, those who have been granted divine titles, those who have been suppressed, those who have been transmigrated, and those who have become mounts. As soon as he emerged, he transformed into Buddha and passed on his teachings to his eldest disciple, Duobao Daoist. He was then transported to the west and transformed into Duobao Tathagata. The Golden Spirit Holy Mother was attacked by the deputy leader of the Chan sect, the Randang Taoist. Later, the Randang ancient Buddha used a magic weapon to ambush her, causing her physical body to dissipate and her primordial spirit to be listed. From then on, there was no further improvement in the Tao, and she was forever enslaved by the heavenly court. The Holy Mother of the Turtle Spirit was subdued by the Golden Lotus with the 12th grade merit, and later attacked by the wilderness monster Mosquito Taoist. Her essence and spirit were completely absorbed, leaving only an empty shell. Although the Virgin Mary of Wudang survived by chance, she disappeared without a trace from then on. At this point, the dust has settled on the 4 disciples who passed down the teachings. Under it, countless disciples from other sects came to a tragic end. Some of them are on the list of gods, some of them have been transformed into 3,000 people in the West, and some of them have become the mounts of Bodhisattva Arhat. The Taoist sect of the 10,000 immortals came to the court in a grand manner, and in the end, all were killed or injured. As the leader of the Taoist sect, Tong Tian was even forced to take the death sacred pill and was forever imprisoned by the Hongjun Taoist ancestor in the Zixiao Palace, unable to take any steps. The venerable saint of the Tang dynasty, who was conspired by 2 elder brothers and betrayed by his disciples, became a pawn of the heavenly Tao's operation. In the end, it ended in a tragic fate of betrayal and eternal loneliness. If Tong Tian could have seen through all of this earlier, or perhaps he had already seen through it, but still held a glimmer of hope towards his 2 brothers, otherwise he would never have ended up like that. Why do Taoist friends shake their heads, but what is their opinion? Tong Tian couldn't help but ask when he saw Ning Sheng shaking his head. Although he didn't think the relationship between Sanqing would be like, the faint palpitations in his heart and the words of this senior also made him have to take it seriously. If the heavenly sage had said these words, it wouldn't be surprising, but as a disciple of the Jiejiao sect, Qingping Daoyu didn't realize the relationship between the 2 sections. Even if you have never personally experienced it, you should have heard of other disciples' experiences to some extent. Ning Sheng said calmly. I usually stay in seclusion, but I am not very familiar with these things. Please help me clarify. The head of the Tongtian sect was shaken, unsure of what the senior was going to say. Ning Sheng glanced at him and spoke faintly, have you ever heard a disciple of Zhanjiao mock the disciples of Jijiao? They are all covered in hair and armor, wet and egg-like. As soon as Ning Sheng spoke, it exploded in Tong Tian's mind like thunder on the flat ground. P.S. On a new day, with a new atmosphere, getting dressed and sleeping together, feeling drowsy after washing up, hurry up and start writing a new chapter. I hope the readers can support me with flowers and reviews. Please. Woo cheese and succulent grapes are so delicious. It's another day full of vitality. Chapter 8. 3 Teachings, 3 Xiaoniang. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. 3 Teachings, 3 Xiaoniang. How could this be? Whispering in the sky, my mood wavers. But he is a sage of the heavenly way, even a single sentence is enough for him to understand the causes and consequences. Thinking back to the past, the 2 elder brothers, Yuanshi and Taishang, were already quite critical of the disciples he had received. He didn't care, or rather, he repeatedly conceded on the friendship between the two of them as brothers. But he never expected that Zhangjiao would dare to humiliate his disciples like this. Red lotus, white lotus, green lotus leaves. The three teachings were originally one family, but perhaps their fate had already been predetermined when they were established. Ning Sheng sighed slightly. At the beginning, the heavenly sovereign established his teachings and focused on following others. He only received those with excellent talent, and the most despised ones were the demon race. His disciples were all those with great opportunities and good fortune. The leader of the Tongtian sect established the concept of cutting off teachings without discrimination, advocating for the creation of a path of vitality for all beings in heaven and earth. All those who aspire to the Tao have the opportunity to join the sect. Interpreting the teachings of the two religions is two extremes. Born to be incompatible with fire and water, how can we coexist on the same mountain without sparking disputes? It has long been destined to pass on the teachings of 3 friends, 2 teachings and 3 cleanliness to separate families. Every sentence seems to be ringing in the heart of Master Tongtian. Even if he didn't want to believe that Sanqing's relationship would break down, he had to face it head-on. Different doctrines lead to different days. Is Sanqing destined to separate families? Is it just a joke that the 3 cleanups are integrated? After a long silence, the leader of the Tongtian sect murmured a sentence. Ning Sheng did not say much. For some things, it's enough to just point them out. He has said enough, and I believe that Qingping Daoyu is capable of comprehending it. When he returns to Kunlun Mountain and verifies what he has said, he will naturally know the truth. The matter you mentioned is of great significance. Please allow Qingping to bid farewell first. The leader of the Tongtian sect restrained his mind and barely regained his composure. He just wanted to rush back to Kunlun Mountain to see if it was really as the senior said. In fact, he knew that since it was said by his seniors, it had basically become a foregone conclusion. However, it is related to the morality and righteousness of Sanqing. If he does not see it with his own eyes, it will be difficult for him to feel at ease. Okay, then I'll give my fellow Taoist a ride. Ning grew up and walked out of the river temple with the leader of the Tongtian sect. Arriving at the Taichu River, Ning Sheng raised his hand and pressed it, making the entire river calm. He is doing this so that this Qingping Taoist friend can come and go freely, so as not to be troubled by inner demons that he dare not come here. But in the eyes of Master Tongtian, the entire river of time has been forcibly suppressed, turning the water here into an ordinary piece of water. At this moment, the Taichu River is devoid of any supernatural powers, even ordinary creatures can cross the river. I am truly a senior. The leader of the Tongtian sect was deeply moved, and then bid farewell to Ningsheng again. He came to the riverbank, sat on Kuei Nyo, and left. Ningsheng watched as the two of them left, smiled inexplicably, and returned to the river god temple. On the Kunlun Mountains. The figure of the heavenly master appeared in the clouds at an unknown time. At this moment, his mood is very complicated. Although he had the heart not to believe that Sanqing would come to the point of separation, after all, they had an eternal friendship, but since the senior spoke up, how could he be wrong? Rao is the revered sage of heaven, and facing such a situation, it is difficult to make a choice. And just as the leader of the Tongtian sect was pondering, suddenly came a powerful force from Kunlun Mountain that seemed to shake the heavens and earth. Looking down from the sky, I saw a large ancient copper seal appearing over the Kunlun Mountains, blocking the sky and sun, as if it was about to be suppressed downwards. Fan Tianin. At the time of the Lich Demon Tribulation, the fire ancestor Wu Zhurong of the 12 ancestral witches and the water ancestor Wu were engaged in a public battle when they accidentally broke the Buzhou mountain. Mount Buzhou is the pillar that supports the sky. After it breaks, the sky will tilt, and only then can Nu Hua repair the sky. The section of Mount Buzhou that was broken by the collision was taken by the heavenly Emperor Yuanshi and refined into the postnatal treasure, the Fantian seal. After the completion of the refining by Yuanshi Tianzuan, he gave the Fantian seal to one of the 12 golden immortals, the eldest disciple of the sect, Guangchengzi. Guangchengzi, you have been deceiving others too much. This place is clearly my Sanshao Daoist temple. When did it become your place to preach? Under the seal of Fantian, there are 3 stunning female immortals, with a mixed-element golden bucket on their heads, struggling to support them. Just now, it was one of the petite and delicate female immortals, who looked like a girl, drinking out loud. And next to her, there are 2 female immortals. One of the female immortals has a graceful figure, with a frosty face, and every move carries a noble and elegant aura that is not to be defiled. And another person, with a face like a young girl, curved eyebrows and eyes, full of gentle laughter, like emerging from mud without staining, washing clear ripples without being demonic, with every frown and smile, touching the soul. These 3 female immortals are the famous 3 Xiao Empress of later generations. P.S. On a new day, with a new atmosphere, getting dressed and sleeping together, feeling drowsy after washing up, hurry up and start writing a new chapter. I hope the readers can support me with flowers and reviews. Please. Woo cheese and succulent grapes are so delicious. It's another day full of vitality. Chapter 9. Kill the disciples of this sage, and this sage should also praise them. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Kill the disciples of this sage, and will this sage still praise you? In the later world of deities, the 3 heavenly empresses shone brightly, wielding a top-notch innate spiritual treasure called the mixed yuan gold dough, setting up a 9-bend yellow river formation, and battling and teaching the 12 golden immortals. The 9-bend yellow river formation is capable of losing the spirit of immortals, eliminating the soul of immortals, capturing the form of immortals, damaging the energy of immortals, losing the original essence of immortals, and damaging the limbs of immortals. Immortals enter here and become mortal, while mortals enter here and become extinct. Xiaoniang used the 9-bend yellow river formation to trim the top 3 flowers of the 12 golden immortals and hold 5 qi in her chest. Even the lantern-burning Taoist, who had 3,000 guests in the purple sky, could only escape. In the end, he invited 2 saints, Yuanshi Tianzuan and Laozi, to break through the 9-bend yellow river formation. But at this moment it was obvious that the 3 Xiao Empress was far from the path she had when she was enfeoffed as a deity. She was only a tiny golden immortal with cultivation, and could only rely on the power of the Hunyuan golden dough to barely survive under the command of Guangchengzi. The Hunyuan golden dough is a top-notch innate spiritual treasure, containing the world of heaven and earth. It can hold all the treasures of heaven and earth, and has an extremely strong and unstoppable suction for collecting immortals and objects. As soon as the golden light shines, even the great Luo immortal is doomed. But Yun Shao still cannot fully control this treasure, otherwise even Guangchengzi, the 12 golden immortals, would be fearless. Dao Chang. A group of furry and armored, wet and egg-like beasts, lucky enough to worship under the sect of Master Tong Tian. Kunlun Mountain, such a sacred mountain, is it something that you can defile? I advise you to take the initiative to withdraw from Jiejiao as soon as possible, get out of Kunlun Mountain, and avoid losing face. Guangchengzi's tone was cold and his expression was full of disdain. As a result, the rich magical power of the great Luo golden immortal continuously poured into the Fantian seal, intending to directly kill Sanshao town under the Fantian seal. The power emanating from Fantian has become increasingly terrifying and powerful, with spiritual energy surging around and faint signs of cracking in the space. The clouds silently bit their silver teeth, revealing a pale complexion on their stunning and cold face. The Hunyuan golden dough on top of their heads was about to collapse, clearly unable to support it. Bixiao, Xiongxiao, go ahead and invite senior brother Duobao. Sister, never do this. If we leave, how can you resist Guangchengzi alone? Xiong Xiao, the smallest among the 3 Xiaos, spoke up. Bixiao also nodded, obviously not leaving Yun Xiao alone here. There was a hint of helplessness on Yun Zhao's pale, pretty face, and he also knew the temperament of his two sisters. She lifted her beautiful eyes and looked at Guangchengzi, who stood tall in the sky with a fairy-like demeanor and a strong character, and drank softly. Guangchengzi, do you really want to disregard the friendship between the two religions, see the relationship between the Heavenly Master and the Yuanshi Master as if there is nothing, and take action against us? If you break the loyalty of Master Sanqing at that time, won't you be afraid of the sage's anger? At this moment, Yun Shao can only hope that Guangchengzi can be wary of the leader of the Tongtian sect and dare not take action. Upon hearing these words, Guangchengzi sneered. I naturally dare not disrespect the sage. At this moment, I am just clearing the door for Master Tongtian. Under the sage's sect, it is unfortunate to have you and other inferior followers. In the long run, it will inevitably cause a foul atmosphere in the Shangqing Palace, which will displease Master Tongtian. At this moment, I will kill you, and it's hard to say that Master Tongtian will still appreciate me. You, bastard. Yun Shao saw Guangchengzi so shameless, cold and silent. It's useless to talk too much, send Erding on the road now. Upon hearing these words, Guangchengzi's gaze was filled with murderous intent, and Fan Tianyin thundered down to suppress them. However, at this moment, a faint and indifferent voice, like a heavenly voice, spread from outside the 9 heavenly clouds. If you kill my disciple, will I still appreciate you? Click. A wisp of divine power pierced through the sky, and the 30.3 heavens trembled. In an instant, the sky withered and the earth grew old, the sun and moon faded, and stars fell all over the sky. It was like a vast and desolate sky, about to collapse. The sky-blocking seal had already faded in an instant, transforming into a small 3-inch seal and falling into the mountains. Instead, there is a young Taoist who steps on the blue and dark world. The figure of a Taoist is not very majestic, and can even be said to be thin, but just standing there makes all beings in heaven and earth rise and fall. It seems like the Tao is manifesting, or like a heavenly sword piercing through the sky. There are billions of people, but no one has such a domineering spirit like him. Although there are 3,000 avenues, it is unparalleled that this path is even more magnificent. This is the sage. At this moment, the 3 realms and 6 paths, the vast and boundless wilderness, and countless sentient beings are all startled. In the west, on Mount Mitua, palaces made of pure gold rise and fall one after another. The sad-faced receiving saint is sitting on the golden lotus of merit and virtue, with the 8 treasures merit and virtue pooled beside him. Bodhisattvas, Arhat, and countless Bhikkhus stand in the forest. Each of them has a solemn appearance, and the Buddha's light shines all over them. At this time, Western religion had already begun to take shape. The sage is preaching to the disciples of the Western religion, and on Mount Mitua, the sky is full of flowers, the earth is filled with golden lotus, and there is boundless Buddha's light, bringing salvation to all sentient beings in the West. Tens of thousands of disciples of Western religions, each with their own unique colors, converge into a set of sentient beings, either intoxicated, with a joyful expression on their faces, or with a look of sorrow and sorrow on their faces. All sentient beings are diverse and diverse. At this moment, the sage suddenly stopped speaking and looked ahead. Within a pair of Buddha eyes, there seemed to be countless Buddha lights flowing through the vast universe. The disciples below all opened their eyes in confusion, unaware of what the sage had sensed. At the same time, the saint of Zhuanti, holding the 7 treasures and wonderful tree, showed his figure with a joyful expression and said, "Senior brother, there seems to be a barrier between the 3 cleanses. This may be the opportunity for me to go west." Good. Jiayin just nodded and stopped speaking. P.S. On a new day, with a new atmosphere, getting dressed and sleeping together, feeling drowsy after washing up, hurry up and start writing a new chapter. I hope the readers can support me with flowers and reviews. Please. Woo cheese and succulent grapes are so delicious. It's another day full of vitality.